Hey up lads and lasses, Damphyre here, back from my holiday with a slight tan with more Infinite Lagrange. So I'm going to be covering a couple of the bits that while I was on holiday dropped, such as the anti-air and stuff like that. I've got the patch notes open here, and this is the notes when they were like stuck straight into the game after the pilot server. I will not be reading through this because it's a pretty ridiculous wall of text, let's be honest. So, regardless, let's talk about it because although on holiday, I actually was in server and I managed to do some bits and pieces every morning, 10 minutes, sent my fleets out and got some battle reports, and I tested predominantly the main thing that we needed to test, which was, are the anti-aircraft weapons working? Is there a counter to swarm? That's pretty much it. So, TLDR, AA weapons are working, yes, and TLDR on the sort of, is there a counter to swarm? No, there isn't. Swarm is still absolutely and 100% prevalent. There is a slight switch to the standard build of it. Unfortunately, I'm not in server, so I can't just bring that up and just show you a fleet. So I'm just going to have to sort of talk you through it a little bit. But I'll bring the pictures of the ships up or something like that. Battle reports, by the way, they're in my Discord server. If you want to look at them and see what we tested and how we tested, jump into my Discord server. There is a reaction roll thing in there that you can click to get you into the IL part of the server, because I did cover Galaxy Reavers 2 and a few other games in the past. So I have separated it all out so you don't jumble everything up. In the IL bit, in the testing bit, you can go have a look at all the battle reports done by myself and a few of us that were testing. Again, a shout out to the guys that helped me test. I'd name you all, but there was quite a few of you, so it'd be a bit difficult to try and get through them all. And some of them weren't on Discord and some were in game, and yeah, it's complicated. So, thank you for the guys that helped me test. But yeah, if you want to see the battle reports, that's how you get to them. Link for Discord will be in the description down below. Now, the problem that we had, and my original thought was, okay, maybe if you build a full set of anti-aircraft ships, you'll be completely fine. It'll take on a swarm, or at least, it'll kill off all of the aircraft. It didn't work like that whatsoever, and we tried the premium high-end max tech points. I have pretty much all the AA ships. I was moving tech points around to test things, including like Callisto with the UAV systems, light cones, winged hussars, all of them. And yeah, they all did do more AA damage, but the amount of anti-ship damage within the swarm fleet, within its aircraft, is so high, it knocks your AA damage out and knocks your AA ships out before they can really do anything. So, that left us in a position where it's like, okay, the AA ships can actually help now. How do we sort of work a way around that? So, we took the standard swarm build, which is 5 solar whales and reinforcements. So that's 85 aircraft or whatever it is. That's the max solar whales. Obviously, you need to work on that if you don't have them. You take the Jaeger as well, 5 Jaeger in my case, and that houses my cellular defenders and nebula chaser pulses to get as much damage output as potential. And then I run some AC-721s and stuff like that to get out a screen in front of things and that kind of thing. So I end up with about 118 aircraft. Two Predator tacticals I run in there as well, and that's for the 8 Hayridden fighters, so I could give them it was anti-carrier, but they changed that afterwards, and that's now anti-supercap. So I'm going to talk about that a bit as well. When we were testing, it was still anti-carrier. It wasn't anti-supercap. So that changed how I did meta, because the meta that I thought, because I don't have Mistral, so that's a big part of the swarm fleet. And as I didn't have it at the time, I started subbing in ships like the Winged Hussar into my Swarm fleet, and it worked out a treat. I was able to keep up and normally outperform players running the Mistral in their fleet because of the Winged Hussar dealing sometimes 50% of my anti-air damage. So you're looking like 500,000-600,000 anti-air damage. I had Spore in there. I have Sandrake in there. They're my big anti-damage. Oh, and T800, CVT 800. They were my big anti sort of ships that I had available to me. Adding in 10 Winged Hussar AA on the front line so they cover the fleet was fantastic. So basically, if you take my old fleet, which was the Eris heavy cannon on front row with Taurus on the front row, Winged Hussar now on front row, you still have room, the 2 Tactopreds, Jaeger, and I had Xeno in there for more anti-carrier, and that worked wonderfully. So, moral of it, well, the dilemma of it really was that Swarm is still the prevalent fleet. You may try and fit in some of these anti-ships in it if you are missing maybe Mistral or something like that, where you kind of have to rely on them to deal out the amount of AA. Now, the next big change that they did was the health reduction on basically everything. You can practically ignore it. It's basically like they've just turned the health back from before. So when we started getting, oh, you put TP into the ship and now you get more health on the ship. It's basically just reverted that change. So you can pretty much ignore whatever happened there. It's just kind of like before. It has made battles potentially a little bit faster. But you won't see much notice there, I don't think. The super cap change on everything that had target carriers. The change that it's going to make it so they now target super caps may lead to very wealthy players, let's be reasonable here, run, you know, high damage battle cruiser and carrier fleets. So you're going to maybe start seeing heavy fleets come in, especially with the heal. Things like spears. So maybe it'll be like 5 or 6 spears backed up with 5 solar whales, and you fill in the rest of those slots with maybe support ships like the healing, because the healing efficiency now is actually pretty decent and can potentially be useful in the late game. I will note though, I still just think having more damage out is probably better than having more healing out in the first place, because if you're killing stuff off, you're not taking the damage anyway. So you're probably going to try and get CTGs in there or something like that, or Eternal Storms. So there is a new fleet, this super heavy fleet. There is a bit of a meme fleet that was being tested. I unfortunately couldn't pull it off. It needed spear, and it was just like a load of healing ships, and they had like a 38-minute battle. It was glorious. Again, that battle report in my Discord to have a look at that. It was quite funny though. So that is like the big main changes that's happened since I've been gone. I did get into the pilot server. I did manage to test things out, and I was pretty disappointed in the fact that you couldn't field like a full AA fleet to counter Swarm, because Swarm's damage purely almost comes from the AA. So, you know, knocking those out, obviously pretty decent, but oh well, you know, is what it is. We still have Swarm meta, so don't worry about that too much if you're missing key ships. You can now think about adding in AA ships though into that Swarm, and that's where you're going to be doing pretty well with that anyway. So I'll talk a bit about some of the ships anyway, because I can, and we'll jump over to that bit now. So just to go through a couple of the ships that definitely worked out pretty well in the AA front. Both the Xeno defensive, if we have a look at it here, the anti-aircraft type on the Xeno defensive, again, as prior to the changes, is still really good, and it will absolutely murder pretty much any aircraft. Well, Corvette-wise, it will absolutely decimate them. Even I had a full setup, which was just like pure AA fleets. This thing was doing pretty much most of the heavy lifting in those fleets. And then again, in the Not so much within the Swarm fleet when I was doing the mixed fleet of a bit of AA with a bit of the Swarm. That definitely didn't do anywhere near as well there, and I think that's mostly due to the fact that when you have things like T-800 and stuff, they're going for the Corvettes anyway, so you're kind of losing out a bit there in the first place. However, in those instances, you might run something like the Winged Hussar AA. I've already talked about it a bit earlier. This thing's pretty nice. It's just, you know, it's 6 CP as well, so it's quite cheap to get into fleets, which makes it really, really viable. As far as I'm aware, I actually think now that the increase your hit rate against enemy fighters by 30% when your fleet includes flight fighters actually works now. So that's actually really quite nice. You also get a bit of dodge rate here from guided weapon systems, which is quite cool because it is mid-row. Oh no, front row. Keep forgetting about that with the AA type. So yeah. Definitely check out the Winged Hussar AA. It does a lot. Like I mentioned, I have some battle reports, and this thing was doing 250,000 anti-air damage. That's tremendous, and that was within the Swarm fleet. So I've got Spores dealing damage there. I've got Sandrakes. I've got T-800s dealing damage there, and these kept up. So definitely worth having a look at. Definitely check them out. Stick them in your Swarm fleets now. And yeah, they should do really well. Obviously, when we're talking about the meta, the difference is, like, I put 10 in because I needed to test it and I need to make sure they work. But there's a potential there, maybe you only put 5 in and that's enough just to take that balance over. So you're going to need to still a bit more testing on here. And again, like I said, I didn't have too much time while I was on holiday to test. And I'm currently not in server, currently sat in the hub. So hopefully within few more days I'll be back in a server, and I can actually get a bit more testing done when I get into the late game and fly them, because no doubt I'll end up in a war. I always end up in a war, so I can go blow somebody up and I'll see how well they do in that instance as well, which is a better test in my opinion than making specific fleets to try and attack each other and stuff like that. Although when we were testing, I did try and make sure that everyone just used standard Swarm. Standard Swarm can vary quite a bit, little, differences here and there. Some people run Xenos, some people run Carillion Frontline. I run, off-tank with Hate Sierras and Taurus, and other people do other things as well. So it does vary, and obviously I've got Solar Whale with all the mods. Some people don't have that, so they're running CV3Ks, which means they need more stuff in fleet to carry more fighters or vets and stuff. So, yeah. Another ship that surprised me, AC-721, the missile type. Another one that surprised me. This thing did pretty reasonable amount of AA damage. Definitely worth having a look at as well. Maybe you don't have Winged Hussar. This is definitely an option there. The only issue I have with it is it's at 8 CP. It's 2 CP more than the Winged Hussars, which means every 3 AC-721s could be 4 Winged Hussars, so you're getting an entire extra ship there for pretty much free, which, that's quite a bit, really. It's a lot more damage output. If you just look at the base on the anti-aircraft, you got 1,000 anti-air here. Actually, I'm not even sure the AC-721's meant to be anti-air, sort of. 780 there, so it's lower in the first place. It has got better firepower though, so there is an option here. As well. Something else that worked quite nicely were Mer Tranquillatus. That one. The anti-aircraft version didn't do as well as the pulse cannon version still, and that was the same prior to the patch. This thing actually does considerably better AA now, and it's not quite on the level of Winged Hussar. Winged Hussar, in my eyes, was the highlight of the patch. It did substantially more AA, and it surprised me from when I first tried it out right up until the point where we were testing out Swarm with Swarm versus Hussar, and just mixing and matching a little bit and playing around with the standard meta fleets. Something else, I tested the Light Cone. Unfortunately, the AA version, I don't think the actual damage for the AA was coming from its UAVs, and it was coming from its missile system, which is a bit unfortunate. Something else, the Callisto, I tested out the support type. This actually did quite well. I was gladly surprised to see the AA UAV system doing well, which is quite nice because this thing actually has, it's still got the cluster torps from the Type A, the standard one. Okay, it's got less of them, but now you've added a bit of support to your fleet with some AA on the back row, where your carriers are. Plus, you've got some reasonably large damage output from its missile system. So definitely don't sleep on the Callisto heavy UAV. Definitely up there on the ones that I tested. But yeah, so we tested most things. The Ruby, the Ion Cannon Ruby, I don't know how or why, but it got worse. They added a extra buff onto a potential strategy, wherever it is. I think it was this one. When a system aircraft attack within 90 seconds after the battle starts, there is a slight chance to deal energy damage equal to 70% of the target's max HP. That one. Don't run that one. Do just run the anti-aircraft support, which gives you 40-second hit rate, whole row attack, and it's 30 seconds for 25 seconds. So you got like a 5-second cooldown or something on it. And it's pretty much back up. But I say that it's 30 seconds, you've got to wait, and then it'll work for 25 seconds. But yeah, this still does pretty reasonable AA, so definitely, potential there. My old fleet, instead of running Winged Hussars, would run Rubix Ions in it. So I might shift around a little bit, maybe run 5 Ions, 5 Winged Hussars, something like that might do well there. So that's about it, though. I did test them all. I will go through them all a bit more when I go through and redo all of the ranking videos, because I need to change them all. They need to be updated. Eternal Storm was another one I tested. I've pulled my tech points out of this, but I did have the UAV system on whichever slot it is, and the pulse turret system, which I believe is also AA. Yeah. Must be this one then. Yeah. Anti-UAV, anti-aircraft. So again, it wasn't that good, which is unfortunate because I was really looking forward to keeping Eternal Storms within like the main fleet and running a heavy carrier fleet, or a heavy supercat fleet with Eternal Storms reinforced with solar whales, and having these anti-aircraft UAVs running as well, just to give me a bit more edge. Unfortunately, it didn't do too well, and I pulled the tech points out because they gave 450 movement speed to the ST-59, which is going to be amazing. So I'm going to be running this next server because it's cheap, it's 28 CP, and I can near enough max it. I've got all the mods for it, and I think this is still the best looking ship, or one of the best looking ships in the game. So 450 cruising speed, it's going to be loads of fun. No more slow boating for me with my ST-59s. So that is it. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Again, apologies, it's a little bit of a talky head video. Mostly, again, like I said, I was on holiday at the time, and so I couldn't record. The battle reports all disappeared as soon as the pilot system dropped, so I couldn't even get hold of those. I've got some screenshots and stuff, but they're not particularly great screenshots. And they're better viewed out of in Discord or on a website or something like that. If you open original, you'll go to a website. It is just better to look at them there, in my opinion. So there you have it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you next time.